Welcome to this new Flight Simulator update movie. In this movie we're gonna look at the latest beta release of the Aircraft and Avionics update number 2, which is currently in beta. Right, so it bumps up to version 2, version 1.33.7.0, so that's good to see. So again, right, they are reminding you that you need to, I would say, make sure that you're not having reporting issues if you've got issues with the community builds or with community add-ons, and that you should move them to different locations and test it again to make sure that the community addition or community add-on is not causing the issue. So first of all, there's a generic or general bug fixes, especially for the Xbox, where it could cause world updates number 7 and 12 to be deleted from the user's Xbox storage. Not so nice, but apparently it has happened. So that's now being fixed in this version. Then the next item or category is already the aircrafts, right? So there are no, I'd say, glass cockpit enhancements. They're purely focusing on the Boeing 787 and 747. So first of all, they've added some new functionality again, right? So they added the auto mode for the seatbelt control. They added the cabin chime button functionality, air conditioning, CAS messages, right? Which are the messages which are being displayed on the displays that you need to do something. And they added the auto engine and wing anti-ice logic and associated CAS alerts. So if you need to switch on the anti-ice or have it set to auto, it will show those alerts. Then the autopilot, the MCP heading is now automatically set to the runway heading when lock is captured, right? So when the localizer is captured, it will automatically set the MCP heading to that specific direction to make sure that you're flying in the correct direction. And the PFD HUD has, they added the TCAS resolution advisory pitch guidance symbology. So they changed the symbology being displayed on that nice display. Then the ND, 3 changes there. First of all, they added a map failure flag when iris is not aligned, right? Then it can't load the map, so that's good. And they added the graphics for the fixed info, the bearings, distances, A-beam, predicted altitude and ETA markers, as well as they adjusted the display of terrain colors to be closer to the real world behavior. Looking at the CDU, also received some new content. The runway/position field is now editable on the takeoff reference page, as well as the speed target altitude field on the whole page now copies the speed and altitude constraints of its parent lag and allow modification and deletion, right? So if you're flying to, I would say, a hold, then it will make sure that it will copy that speed and altitude constraints if there are any, but you can still change them or even delete them. Then the last one for the CDU, the waypoint/alt field on the destination page now overrideable with a manually input waypoint altitude pair, so you can now override it, which was not possible prior to this update. Sounds, they added the approaching minimums overall, right, where it says, okay, hey, if you're approaching the minimums, then we'll tell you. They split the power on and PAX sounds and link to PAX functionality, so it looks like that they split the sound files. One system was reworked in the 747. It was the fuel system, the transfer logic, the synoptic page, and the associated CAS alerts. So systems have been updated, I should say. And the 787, the synoptics, they added a manual view jettison synoptic display on the view page. And the last one, the ICAS, they added the ref indications. Then there are several bug fixes and improvements, right? So those are, let's say, sometimes generic, right? Both applicable to the 747 and 787, but as you can see here, going down the list, you will see that they are really specific. So the first number of items is, I would say, applicable to both aircrafts, right? They added the spoiler lever tips, they fixed the window heating, and screens are now blank when popped out, and there's no power, as well as pushing the standby instrument baro knob no longer adjusts the baro setting on the PFD altimeter. Also, they improved the checklist, right, the flow, and as well as the sim pre-flight, and they improved the flow of the sim pre-flight checklist, I should say that. And we improved the cameras to an instrument camera preset, right? So that's when you're going to the different views, it's sometimes useful to have those presets defined, because then you can quickly go to those or in this case, to those instruments. And that's now what they've done. Then the PFD visual improvements, as well as the vertical speed indicators, now being replaced by a vert failure flag when the altitude data is not available, as well as the PFD HUD, the approach reference data for non-precision approaches, now shows the missed approach point rather than runway, as well as the hot takeoff reference data is now shown in the approach reference area. Then the ICAS engine and wing anti-ice indications, right? So the ICAS shows you the warnings messages. This one was already also added as an improvement point, so it's also a fix. And then the ND map no longer flashes and flashes artifacts when toggling weather, right? That's what's when you're switching to weather, right? It sometimes flashed. That was really weird. Then the CDU. Multiple fixes there, several of them on the route page where you can now or copy values from the scratchpad, as well as the pilot entered latitude longitude waypoints now accept the correct formats. That wasn't the case where you couldn't input those correct long and latitudes. Then the page count on the whole page will now no longer show 0 of 1, which doesn't make sense. It's 1 out of 1. And the visual fix on various pages, right, where they optimize some of the pages, which are, I would say, looking a little bit better. Then the FMS targeted MAC values are now colored magenta on the VNAV pages, right? On the VNAV pages, you can set those predefined target speeds or MAC speeds. They are now a different color, as well as the approach edits in the mod plan no longer affect other systems such as the ILS tuning or something else, or PFD HUD approach reference data, right? So they fixed that. Then again, the coloring, in this case for the cruise altitude on the cruise page, the VB and VS fields, right? Vertical speed on the destination pages don't change as rapidly, and they fix various issues with entering alternates, right? So when you enter an alternate, it wouldn't be picked up correctly. Then the FMS, they fixed the bug when creating a direct to, which sometimes results in a looping path to the target fix, would create a loop, right, where you were flying in loops. The autopilot, they fixed multiple things. An issue where the PFD speed target got stuck in MAC, right? That sometimes happened when you started the flight and then I would say went back. It changed from I would say the knots to the MAC, and you were not able to change it again. And they fixed an issue where the AP SIMVARs were not correctly set correctly when spawning in the air. That's when starting in the air, the SIMVARs, which are used by external tools, were not set correctly. Or read by external tools, I should say. Then they fixed some scenarios where the AP was not working correctly when spawning in the air, and pressing the V as the vertical speed will now round current vertical speed to the nearest 100 increment. That was, let's say, not possible. They fixed that. Next one, they will no longer start in touch and go mode when spawning in the air. Okay, cool. And the auto throttle, the throttle reference now indicates in takeoff phase when VNAV activates above 400 feet AGL if armed. Then several things for the VNAV, right? So the descent is no longer automatically initiated at the top of descent unless the MCP altitude is lower than the cruise altitude. So an important change. And the altitude intervention now either deletes constraints or performs another action like changing the cruise altitude or initiating descent, not both, right? You can't have two actions at the same time, and it doesn't work. They improved the airspeed predictions in geometric descent with the VNAV, and also the VNAV, the speed target, can no longer be below the minimum maneuver speed, right? So there are sometimes speeds which are the minimum speed for some maneuvers, and you could set it to a lower value in the VNAV, but that's now being fixed. You can't do it anymore. The climb and cruise speeds are now allowed up to VMO/MO -5 feet. If you know what VMO and MO stands for, then type it in the comment box below this video because I'm really curious. As well as the PFD CDU speeds now match when limited by VMO MMO. Last fix for VNAV, the cruise climb not activating, right? That's something I also experienced. Then systems, they adjust the fuel temperature simulation, right? So the temperature simulation and the rate of temperature change, that's cool. And the controls, holding down the hardware button keys map to the throttle decreasing, or related key events now allow throttles to enter the reverse thrust range without requiring the user release the button when the throttle is at forward idle. So there was a specific button which you could press, and then you could, I would say, kind of use your throttles in a reverse mode. That's especially useful if your throttle doesn't have a reverse functionality. Then you can switch to reverse mode, and then you can go forward and it will go, I would say, in throttle in decrease mode, right? In reverse mode. That's cool. That's something they fix now. Last thing, they reduced the crunchy sounds on the gear impact at low vertical velocities. Then one specific one for the 747, they fixed the pilot yoke not highlighting. Then the 787, they fixed the data format on the flight date block. They fixed a visual issue where the top of the barrel minimum numbers were clipped. They fixed some HUD issues, some ICAS issues, where some information was not being correctly being displayed, as well as they changed the flap gauge to space the flap positions evenly instead of spacing by flap angle. The ICAS received some issues or some fixes, where it shows the oil quantity showing different numbers on the left MFD versus the right MFD. That's very confusing for the co-pilot. And they fixed an issue with 0 indicating TPR idle on the ground. The autopilot, they improved the flare behavior, right, for smoother touchdowns if you want to use the autopilot for landing, as well as the FPA mode now activates with current flight path angle by default. As last, they improved the flare behavior with smoother touchdown. That's a duplicate, or this was for 747. They sneaked the 747 one in here also. Then the FBW, they adjusted the air-to-ground transition to eliminate certain addition of elevator and touchdowns, as well as the flight model. There's a flight model which was issue resolved when there was an insufficient ND trim available at higher speeds and lower altitudes. Last 2 items, one system, the transponder knob should be default to normal. That's for the 747. For the 787, the fixed packs switches when starting in the off position when starting on runway. Specifically for the world, they only fixed 2 things, specifically for the airports. One, of course, is the airport. They updated the RAC to cycle 2305, and they fixed the terraforming issue affecting some of the airports. The peripherals, they removed a white dot pointer that could appear when using the head switch, right? That I think everybody experienced that. There was suddenly a white dot which was there when you used the HUD or the head switch, and they now fixed it. So again, a lot of fixes. That's really cool, right? So when will it be launched? Well, that's always a good question, right? So let's go to flightsimulator.com in that case, and let's have a look at the latest roadmap, because that's always useful. So going to the page, you will find the development roadmap over here. And what we can see here is that currently we're living in June, right? And as you can see here already, I'm zooming in a bit, the 19th of June, which is, I would say, coming closer and closer, they will release the city update number 2, which is take place in France due to there, so I would say an aircraft show, I think, over there. Then the local legends number 9, the Latquer 631 is being released. So that's cool. And then a few days later, like you can see, the 19th is the first, and then on the 23rd of June, they are releasing the Aircraft and Avionics update number 2, as well as the famous Flyer 07 to be announced. But I think it has already been announced, but I'm not sure about that. Then early July, there will be a surprise. So let's see what that surprise will be. So let's keep a close eye on this, I would say, roadmap. Here ends this video where we looked at the latest release notes of the Aircraft and Avionics update number 2, which is currently in beta stage. Hope you liked it. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button. If you got questions or comments, then feel free to post them in the comment box below. And if you want to stay up to date about new videos I'm posting, then make sure that you're subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.